Unaware of my $50 million empire, my husband emptied our joint account and left me for his ex. What I did next left them with nothing. He stood in our living room with his keys in one hand and divorce papers in the other, telling me I'd survive just fine if I learned to live small. My husband, Ryan, 6 years of marriage, 10 years together, didn't know he was talking to the woman who owned a $50 million empire. He thought I was Emily Hayes, the wife who clipped coupons and worried about the electric bill, but I was Emily Carter, CEO of 5 companies he'd never heard of. And the morning he emptied our joint account, $22,600 gone. Every dollar we'd saved. He made the biggest mistake of his life. 3 hours later, his ex-girlfriend Claire posted them on Instagram. Finally back with my soulmate. So glad he left that boring wife. The comments celebrated. Strangers cheered. They thought he'd won. What Ryan and Claire didn't know was that the boring wife had spent 10 years documenting everything, building everything, and preparing for the day someone tried to take from her again. The question isn't how a man could betray his wife so completely. The question is, what happens when the wife he abandoned for having nothing unleashes an empire he never saw coming? And why was Claire's own sister the one who texted me, "You deserve better, he's planning something worse"? That afternoon, I sat at our small dining table with my laptop open, trying to pay the electric bill like I did every month. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from something colder. The joint account screen loaded slowly, the spinning wheel mocking me. And when the numbers finally appeared, my heart stopped. Balance, $0.00. I blinked hard, thinking the page was broken. I refreshed it once, twice, 3 times. The number didn't change. Everything we'd saved together, gone. Every deposit I'd made from my freelance consulting work. Every careful transfer I'd moved from my empire to cover our modest life drained. Ryan had taken it all. I could hear my mother's voice from 20 years ago, standing in our empty childhood home, while strangers carried out our furniture. People take everything if you let them, Emily. Never forget that. I was 10 years old that day, watching my father's business partner destroy us, watching my parents lose everything because they trusted the wrong person. That memory shaped every decision I made after. It's why I built my empire under a different name. It's why I never told Ryan the truth. It's why I kept my wealth invisible, protected, mine. But sitting there, staring at that zero, I realized something terrible. Protecting myself hadn't protected me from this. Ryan didn't just take money. He took my trust, my peace, the years I gave him, believing we were building something together. My chest tightened, and I forced myself to breathe slowly, the way I used to when I was a scared little girl, watching everything fall apart. I opened my phone and dialed the bank. The hold music felt like it lasted forever. When the representative finally answered, I kept my voice steady even though my pulse was screaming. "I need to verify recent withdrawals from my joint account," I said. There was typing, a pause. Then the woman's voice came back cautious and careful. "Mrs. Hayes, I show 3 large withdrawals, 2 earlier this week for $1,200 and $850. And 1 this morning for $22,600. All were done in person at our downtown branch." In person. Ryan had walked into a bank, shown his ID, and taken everything while I was at home working, building companies he knew nothing about. "And who authorized them?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Your husband, ma'am, because it's a joint account. We can't restrict access without." I hung up before she finished. The room felt too quiet, too small, like the walls were closing in. I stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the street where Ryan's car used to park. It wasn't there. It hadn't been there in 3 days. That's when my phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. Someone had tagged me in a post. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. There they were, on and Claire, arms wrapped around each other, smiling like they'd just won the lottery. Her blonde hair catching the sunlight, his hand on her waist, her lips against his cheek. The caption made my hands go numb. "Finally back with my soulmate. So glad he left that boring wife." The comments poured in like poison. "You two are perfect together. She was holding you back. King, Claire, you're glowing. He made the right choice." I sat back down slowly, my legs weak, my breath shallow. They were celebrating. The world was celebrating. And I was supposed to be the fool, the woman left behind with nothing, the boring wife who never saw it coming. But that's where they were wrong. I saw everything. I documented everything. And what Ryan didn't know, what Claire didn't know, was that the woman they were mocking owned patents worth millions, manufacturing contracts across 4 states, and a legal team that never lost. I opened my laptop again, but this time I didn't go to the joint account. I went to my real account, the the one registered under Emily Carter. The dashboard loaded instantly. 5 companies, 17 trademarks, 43 employees. Revenue projections that would make Ryan's head spin. I stared at the numbers glowing on the screen, the empire I'd built in complete silence while he thought I was just working from home. My mother's voice echoed again. Never tell anyone exactly how much you have. I'd followed that rule my entire adult life, and now I understood why. Because the moment people know you have something, they start planning how to take it. Ryan had tried. He'd taken everything he could see, everything he thought was mine, but he never saw the real me. He never asked. He never cared enough to wonder why I worked so many hours, why I traveled for consulting, why I kept a separate office downtown he never visited. He assumed I was small, because I lived small. That was his first mistake. His second mistake was thinking I'd stay silent. I reached for my phone and scrolled to a number I hadn't called in months. Daniel Reed, my lawyer. He answered on the second ring. Emily, it's been a while. His voice was calm, professional, the kind of voice that made crisis feel manageable. I need to see you, I said quietly. Today, it's urgent. There was a pause, then I heard him shifting papers. What happened? I looked back at the Instagram post still glowing on my screen, at Ryan's smug smile, at Claire's victorious expression, at the strangers cheering them on. My husband emptied our joint account and left me for his ex-girlfriend, I said, my voice steadier than I expected, and I'm going to make sure he regrets every dollar he stole. Daniel didn't ask questions. He didn't tell me to calm down or think it over. He just said, I'll clear my afternoon. Bring everything. I hung up and opened my files. Bank statements, screenshots, transaction records, emails, texts. I had kept everything. Not because I suspected Ryan, but because my childhood taught me that documentation was survival. I printed page after page, the machine humming steadily, stacking proof of every lie, every withdrawal, every moment he thought I wasn't paying attention. And as the papers piled up on the table, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not sadness, something colder and sharper. Clarity. I walked into Daniel's office 2 hours later, carrying a folder thick enough to hurt. He stood when I entered, his sharp eyes taking in my face, reading everything I wasn't saying out loud. Emily, he said quietly, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I sat down and slid the folder toward him without a word. He opened it slowly, his expression unchanging as he scanned the first page, bank statements highlighting every withdrawal Ryan made. Then the second page, showing the dates and times. Then the third, a printout of Claire's Instagram post with all those cruel, celebrating comments underneath. Daniel's jaw tightened just slightly. The only sign he was angry on my behalf. Walk me through it, he said, leaning back in his chair. So I did. I told him everything. The late nights, Ryan stopped explaining. The phone calls he took in another room. The way he'd started showering the moment he got home like he was washing someone else off his skin. I told him about the first withdrawal I noticed, then the second. Then waking up this morning to find the account completely empty. I told him about the Instagram post, about Claire, about the comments from strangers who thought Ryan was some kind of hero for leaving his boring wife. And then I told Daniel the part Ryan didn't know. He thinks I'm broke now, I said, my voice steady and cold. He thinks he left me with nothing. Daniel raised an eyebrow. But you're not broke. I shook my head slowly. I own 5 companies under my maiden name. My empire is worth $50 million, and Ryan never knew any of it existed. For the first time since I'd known Daniel, 8 years of contracts, negotiations, and business deals, I saw him smile. Not a polite smile, a predator's smile. Then let's make sure he finds out in the worst possible way. The courtroom doors opened with a heavy sound that made everyone turn. Ryan stood near the defense table looking like he hadn't slept in days. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie crooked, his eyes red and hollow. Next to him sat Clare, arms crossed tight, her leg bouncing nervously like she wanted to run. Then I walked in. I wore a simple black dress. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. But the moment I stepped through those doors, the entire room went silent. Ryan's face drained of color. Claire looked away, like she'd been burned. I didn't look at either of them. I walked straight to my seat beside Daniel, who stood the moment I arrived. Ready? He whispered. I nodded once. The judge entered, and everyone rose. When we sat back down, the air felt electric, like lightning was about to strike. Daniel stood and addressed the court, his voice calm but cutting. Your Honor, today we present evidence of financial fraud, marital theft, and intentional concealment carried out by Mr. Ryan Hayes. He clicked a remote, and the screen behind him lit up with our joint account statements, every withdrawal highlighted in red, every date marked, every dollar stolen documented. Whispers rippled through the room. Ryan shifted in his seat. Then Daniel showed the next slide photos of Ryan and Claire at restaurants, hotels, holding hands in parking lots, all paid for with money traced back to our account. Someone in the back gasped. Claire covered her face with her hands. But Daniel wasn't finished. He pulled up text messages between Ryan and Claire, messages Claire's own sister had turned over after the accounts froze. Ryan's words glowed on the screen for everyone to see. "Don't worry, I drained her. We'll start fresh." The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge raised his hand for silence. Then came the final piece of evidence, a recorded message from Claire's sister. The woman who'd sent me that anonymous warning weeks ago. Her voice filled the room, shaky but honest. "I saw them together. I knew what Ryan was planning. I couldn't let him destroy someone who didn't deserve it." Ryan turned to Claire, his face twisted in shock and betrayal. "Your sister?" Claire shook her head, tears streaming. "I didn't know, Ryan. She warned me too. You lied to both of us." The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. "Enough." He looked directly at Ryan, his expression hard and unforgiving. "Mr. Hayes, after reviewing all evidence, this court rules in favor of Mrs. Emily Hayes. You will repay every stolen dollar plus damages. All assets purchased with misappropriated funds will be returned immediately, and due to evidence of intentional deceit, you will face additional investigation for criminal financial misconduct." Ryan's shoulders collapsed. The judge turned to Claire. "Miss Montgomery, based on your involvement with assets knowingly paid for with stolen funds, you will also be investigated as a potential accessory." Claire shot to her feet. "I didn't know. Ryan, tell them." But Ryan said nothing. He just stared at his hands, broken and silent. The bailiff stepped forward, and Claire stormed out, leaving Ryan completely alone. I stood slowly, gathering my papers. As I walked toward the exit, Ryan stumbled after me into the hallway. "Emily, wait, please." His voice cracked. "We can fix this. I didn't know you had anything. I just thought I'd turn to face him." He looked destroyed. "That's your problem, Ryan," I said quietly. "You never tried to know me. You never cared who I was when I wasn't cooking your dinner or paying your bills. You thought I was small because I lived small, but I built a $50 million empire while you were planning how to leave me with nothing." His mouth opened but no words came. I stepped closer. "You didn't just steal money. You stole trust. You stole years. And you lost a woman worth everything because you were chasing someone who didn't even tell you the truth." I turned and walked out into the sunlight. No rain, no storm. Just clear sky stretching wide and free in front of me. Reporters tried shouting questions, but I didn't stop. I didn't need their noise. I only needed peace. Later that afternoon, I stood in my real office, the one Ryan never saw, with floor-to-ceiling windows flooding the room with light. My team handed me documents for a $5 million equity deal I'd been negotiating the week everything fell apart. I read them carefully, then signed my name with a steady hand, Emily Carter Hayes, CEO and founder. Then slowly, deliberately, I crossed out the Hayes. Now it just read Emily Carter. Letting go of his name wasn't painful, it was freedom. I locked the signed papers in my safe and looked around the empire I'd built alone. The empire that survived because I never let anyone take it from me. And as I turned off the lights and walked toward a future I built with my own hands, I realized something important. I didn't win because I had money. I won because I never stopped protecting myself. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story of strength, survival, and justice. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Your support means everything.